Anyone have any other announcements they'd like to make? Oh, okay, Blaine's pointing to a wall in the corner over there. Blaine has generously brought in some more free records. If you haven't already gone through them, you're welcome to help yourself. Blaine, is there anything else you'd like to say about them? I thanked Blaine for the last time I was here. There was a record I just happened to pick out of the pile. I've been looking for it for years, and there it was. And it's very nice of Blaine to bring these records in for us. Thank you. Now, so is anyone else? Any announcements? Online, does anybody want to say anything to the group? Oh, okay, everyone's quiet today. I would like to bring up the fact that Steve O'Neill has been doing a fabulous job as program convener, but unfortunately, for a few different reasons, he's not able to continue in the position, so we need a program convener. And what a program convener does is just basically arrange for someone to present at the meetings. And from what I've seen of the position, I think it's very much a networking type role, where it's basically you think of a topic, hey, let's have everyone do my favorite record or something like that, or bring in your favorite gramophone or unusual machines or something like that. And then just contact people in the club to say, hey, Sam, do you have something that you can contribute to the meeting? And a lot of it's all done with emails. And I don't think it's too time consuming, but Steve, can you say anything about the role, or how did you find it? Did you have trouble adapting to it at all?
It's a lot of it has to do with persistence with people sometimes. But if you can find the time, and unfortunately I don't have the time anymore to hunt people down. But if it's something that you like to do, if you like to correspond with people a lot, if you can network well, and I think there are a couple of people here that would fit the bill. Yeah, it's quite rewarding. But unfortunately, I cannot make all of the meetings anymore. I cannot attend every meeting, and I think that if you have the time to attend these meetings and network, then it's suited for you. So.
And there's been times too where you set everything up and you're not able to make the meeting, so either I'll do the introduction or somebody else too. So that's not always an issue. A lot of it's behind the scenes by some. Mark?
I've done that role for many years, and I'm totally willing to help whoever takes on that role. I'll do like half of it.
Oh, and so will I. I can hand over and give pointers to anybody, and I'll make myself available.
Yeah, but I've also got to help recruit people to do presentations and help arrange it. So it really is not taking it over, it's sort of doing afterwards.
And I'd also like to point out that Alexander has graciously offered to help anyone in the role too, if it involves contacting people or whatever involved in whatever way, which is really kind too. So we have several people who would help you out in the role. And it's a position we really have to fill. I think it's very critical because it's one of the reasons people come to the meetings and tune in on Zoom. And Steve, I believe we've got things set up for at least January's meeting and possibly February too.
Yeah, I have some.
So it's not like we're in a panic.
Things penciled in that, but I still have some time to confirm.
So it's not like it's a total emergency, but we want to get going on this and help the new person in the role. So, as usually happens, if there's not a flood of people coming forward to say, I want to be program convener, then we'll go around and talk to a few people maybe and see if we can get someone interested in the role, because we really have to get it filled. Any questions or comments about it? Geez, you guys are quiet. Okay. And next, I was going to bring up Brian Nix. He's came up with a great series for discussions. I found this thing, what is it? And today he's found something big and heavy. I'll let you take it over.
Okay. All right. Well, I've been trying to do this segment best I can. I'm running out of things that I don't know what I have, but maybe somebody will identify this right away. It's a very unusual motor. Obviously, it's something that I got from my dad's shop that I have no idea what it is. obviously has a crank. It has some sort of a belt mechanism, but it doesn't look like anything I've seen when I've worked in my shop. So, anybody have any idea what this might be?
Angelo.
It's pretty heavy.
That's from an Edison model A80 and B80.
Edison diamond disc. Did it have was it belt driven?
Edison diamond dress, belt driven. I think it's a 80.
The turntable.
There's another, that's what it's out of.
Yeah, you probably can't hear. Angelo's trying to speak in the room about the same thing. So,
Okay.
yeah, thanks. So, yeah, sorry, Angelo, what you said.
So that is standing up. It's mounted on the base of the cabinet.
Yep.
Okay? And then on the top half of the cabinet, there's a motor board that holds the turntable.
So they would have a board on top, as opposed to the.
Upside down.
You have it upside down.
Okay.
There.
Oh.
So the pulley is vertical, yeah.
Okay.
And that pulley matches up with the turntable.
So this matches up with the turntable.
Yeah.
The turntable, like where would the turntable fit on this?
No, the turntable's on a separate board.
Yeah.
With a metal frame and everything. And that turntable frame has another pulley.
Yep.
I don't know.
Match up.
Okay. So yeah, I don't know if anybody on Zoom could hear Angelo, but yeah. So basically for an Edison diamond disc, what model?
A80 and B80.
A80 and B80 is belt driven. So
They're the tabletop models?
Tabletop.
Yeah,
Tabletop?
the tabletop
okay.
models.
So is it just a different model or is it an earlier version?
Well, the A80, I think is something, if you read up the book, it's something called military machine.
Okay. So like a military.
It's different.
So some tabletop version. Okay. Interesting to know. I don't know if I'll ever come across one, but now I've got a motor and I know what it's for.
I think Taylor Swift uses them.
Oh yeah. Good to know. I'll reach out to her.
Someone online was making comments about the motor too. Could you speak up to in case there's something you want to add? No?
Okay. Well, I now know what this thing is.
Thank you very much for bringing it, Brian. And we invite anyone else too, if you find something like that you're not sure what it is, bring it along. We'll put it in this segment and hopefully discover an answer. I think so far we've been batting pretty good, huh?
Yeah, we've been able to identify most of everything. I've already used that little spinner. It worked really well.
Yeah, there
on
was,
my machine. I just perfect. Yeah.
see, and you were going to throw it away.
Oh, I would never.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so if there's no other announcements tonight, I guess I'll speak on behalf of Bill. Just a reminder to renew your membership as it comes due for January. And our next meeting will be January 14th, if you want to mark your calendar. So we've got probably a good 6 weeks to go or so before that and get the holidays out of the way.
Hello, folks.
Yes,
Yeah, I just want to say hi to everybody.
is that you, Richard?
I just want to let you all know this will be my last meeting I'll be having with all of you. But I want to say during the past 3 years, I've been very happy to be here. I've learned a lot from all of this. And Mike, I hope I can once in a while stay in touch with you.
Please do.
Okay,
Thanks for joining us today, Richard.
sure.
Okay, and I wanted to give a thank you to Mike Bryan for so much of what you see here on the tables. And for people on Zoom, he'll go around later and give you a glimpse of what's here. There's a lot of records. Mike's put a lot of effort into, I guess, liquidating the same estate that the last two meetings have provided things for. And Mike, I know it's a lot of time on your part, and it's not just a matter of bringing the things, it's catalog everything, and Bill's involved in it too, where there's a list. We have to keep track of what's sold and for how much. So just thank you again. Let's see, and what else I've got? I also want to thank Don Colvin for getting our guest speaker today. And I thought I'd have you come up here and introduce Brett.
Sure.
it was really your idea to reach out to Brett with our club. And it was nice of you to.
Yeah, I think it actually was somebody else's idea, but
Oh, I thought
I
it
was
was yours.
familiar with him, so
Okay, well, I
it
won't
was
give you
very,
credit.
very easy to do.
Okay, thank you.
I first met Brett through his channel, not him. I was fixing a spring and I thought, okay, I'll do this. But there was a little bit of a problem that I am terrified of sprung steel. The worst job I have is replacing the blade on a bandsaw, because I'm sure that thing is going to come flying across the room and chop my head off. And I even have a bag that has a marking on it for my head should that happen, Sasha. Can put my head in the bag so it doesn't mess up my studio. So Brett had a video on it, on his channel, and I went ahead, used what I learned from him, and replaced the spring, and also discovered I actually kind of like doing it. So I did another one a couple of weeks later, and I have 3 more that are sitting there to be done. But it was great. It was to have the support. And like I said, I did not go into this thinking it was doable, but it was. He also was responsible for me finding out about the blow test for reproducers, which I didn't know about before. But of course, then I got to know that they're supposed to be airtight, which I also didn't know. He, on his channel, also has a concert, which is really nice. I think none of us, probably me being the worst, spend enough time just sitting and listening to these incredible records that we have. So it kind of makes you want to do it because it's on his channel. If anybody's ever thought of doing a YouTube channel or tried it, you know how much work it is, especially if you're going to do it right, which Brett does. It's a huge amount of work and organization. And if you haven't been to his channel, go to his channel. He has a huge output. I have not seen all the videos, and I spend a lot of time on YouTube. Another plus is that he does not monetize his channel. So he's not getting money in from it, which means that it's very generous of him to do it. And if you spend time on YouTube, you know how annoying it is when you're trying to learn something or pick something up, and then you hit the commercials. And at my age, by the time I've listened to the commercials, I just forgot what he was doing back there. So it's very nice to have this all commercial free. Anyways, enough said. I would just like to introduce and welcome Brett Hurt. And the channel is the Dyslexic Genius Hurt channel. So make sure you check it out. And welcome wherever you are, Brett.
Thanks, Tom.
He's muted.
Unmute yourself. Oh,
Hi, how you doing? I'm Dyslexic Genius, Brett Hurt. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah.
I run a YouTube channel. A friend of mine
One on the left.
said, you should do this on YouTube. And I said, how do you do YouTube? And it just evolved from there. I've been collecting and restoring phonographs for 40 years. When I first started in California, people wouldn't tell you how to fix them. And that was before Google and eBay and everything. You know, oh, you want your reproducer rebuilt? Give it to me, I'll do it for you. So I've self-taught myself the whole thing. And yes, I don't monetize. So let's get into this. First, I'm going to talk about cleaning nickel, and then I'll work into reproducers. A lot of people have issues about cleaning nickel. And if the nickel's not too dirty, all you need is 4/0 steel wool and a little Windex. So you spray it on the steel wool like that. And you take your piece of nickel and you just rub it gently. Take a paper towel or shop towel, and that is how it comes out. Very quick and very easy. And you can do this with all the nickel on phonographs because nickel is harder than the 4/0 steel wool. And that's my little trick of polishing things out. On reproducers, I did a lot of reproducers for a long time, and I found out that later in production of Edison, they painted the insides of these diamond discs to get the volume to go in better, the sound waves to not bounce around. And a lot of times on these, you take a reproducer apart like this, or a C, and this is very rough. So the problem arises, the sound waves are bouncing around. So you need to make it flow better. So what I do is I polish them out. And how do I polish them out? Well, I have a lathe, or you can chuck this into a drill. And I made a little tool that's rounded like this. And I take 320 sandpaper. And while it's running on the lathe or the drill, I just move this around like this till this polishes out. And when I was in school, I worked in an engine shop and I ported and polished heads, and that's how I figured all this out. So I needed to get the flow more. And then right here at the base, this base right here, where the top housing goes in, there's a sharp edge. So the sound waves. So what you do is you want the sound waves to flow through this little hole, but now it's hanging up on the sharp edge. So what I do is I come in with a deburring tool, and I just give it a little bit of a clearance so the sound waves come in. And that's all it takes to do it. And then when you start to do your reproducer, like an Edison, you have a copper diaphragm like this, and you go, oh yeah, I'm going to put all this together. I cleaned it. What you want to do is take a little light and stick it underneath and look for little pinholes. And this one has little pinholes, or you can hold it up to a light like that and see it. But that's what I do. And then the other thing is I have a piece of metal, and this is critical on reproducer work. So if you take your copper diaphragm and you drop it straight down, you can hear it doesn't have that ring. And on mica diaphragms, if you take the mica out and say it's a little bit cracked here in the center where it goes on, you drop the mica also, and you can hear it ring. So when you do like a Victor or something, and you drop your mica, and it doesn't ring, it kind of thuds, you should replace your mica. I always do this on a rebuild, is I do the drop test. And you can do the same thing with like diamond disc, like this. This has the same problem. You'll hear that thud, like clunk. And if you're rebuilding a diamond disc, you can come up where they shellac this here, they put varnish or shellac in here. You can chip this out and then put a little bit of super glue to hold it in place, and that takes the weight off the center of the diaphragm. Are there any questions about this? Okay.
No, just checking the room. Go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. On mica diaphragms, you have your reproducer, and we have a needle bar that comes up and goes down and touches. So what I do, like on a Victor #2, is I put the red gasket in, and then I push up on the bottom so that the mica comes up to the red gasket, and then I adjust the needle bar to come in. Just touch. Then I turn everything over, put the other gasket in, tighten everything down, and then I check the needle bar. So when you do it, after you assemble, and you have the two screws to adjust it up and down. I bring the needle bar just so it touches. So when you look at it from the side, you look at your mica and you can see that it's not pushing down or pulling up. And that's very, very critical. It just barely touches. And on Victors, they usually have that little paper gasket on the needle bar screw. You can put them, you can leave them on or put them back together without them. There's no problem. And then when you wax it in, you want to use the least amount of wax you can get, and that'll really improve the reproducer when you do this. It works on everything like that. And my thing is restoration of motors, to make them run better, make them sound better than anything out there. And I've worked real hard at it. Everything I'm going to talk about is in Dyslexic Genius Hurt YouTube channel. So if you go to the main page, go to videos, you type in at the top, you go, how to clean a lead screw on a phonograph, like this Edison Amberola 5. So how do you clean all this out to get all the gunk out? Because these people 100 years ago, 50 years ago, packed them with wheel bearing black grease, and that just binds everything down. So you get this clean, you get the half nut real clean, because what happens is the oils they used back then, they varnish. You know, you ever taken an old car apart or watch on YouTube, they pull an engine apart, and you'll see all this kind of brown tinge on everything. Well, that varnishes in the oil, and that varnish dries up, and it'll get into the threads of the lead screw. So then you have to have all this clean, immaculately clean. And then the problem arises, the brass gear is driving the governor. And I was talking to Jack Stanley a couple of days ago, and he said something about it. And I said, well, does your drive gear on your 5 make a whine noise when you play? So you crank it, the machine, and you hear this coming out of this gear. So how do you fix it? Well, if everything's clean, you go to Starbucks and you get yourself a mocha, or you get one of these little cup stoppers. You go to an automotive store and you get some old school STP. Then while the machine's running, you just dip this in the STP and you just paint this on this drive gear. And what it does is it's a little bit thicker than sewing machine oil, but it instantaneously will quiet the motor down when it's running, and it doesn't fling off. So you have this nice gear running very smoothly now. And these are just little tricks you do when you're on rebuilding. I taught myself. The other thing is when you rebuild, and a lot of people go, well, you know, I'll just make the wheels. I'm not a guy who says make the wheels go round. You take the whole motor apart in restorations, and you get all the junk out of all the gears. So the critical part of phonograph is we have to have the reproducer running well, and now we have to have that motor running well. The problem is we have a 130-year-old phonograph. We don't know how it ran when it came out of the factory because the machine's been run. So we have to think, okay, how far? I have to make it run so it runs smoothly and quietly, because the advertising said they did, but they really don't. And then you put it back together. So then in restorations, we get everything clean, gears. And then on Edison's, we have shafts like this on all of them that hold the gears. And then we have like the bearings on Triumphs that come in, and these all fit together, and this runs. So what I do is when you take them apart, you'll see this pinion right here. that fits into that bearing on Edison Homes, Triumphs, Opera, everything. And then you'll look closely at this and you'll see that it has these wear marks, these little burr lines all the way through on both sides. And then you go, okay, if the metal is burred up, the motor's not running smoothly. So what I do is you can chuck this into your drill or lathe, and I take the same 320 while it's running, and it doesn't take any material off, but it smooths out the wear burr lines you'll see in machines. And you just gently clean this out real well, polish that out, and then you polish it out with 600. Then when you put it back together and you oil it, it runs better. So now people will go, okay, I use sewing machine oil, but now when you assemble this, you're going to use the STP again on the end of these bearings, because then these things are set up a little loose when they spin, because on Triumphs or like this Ambrola 5 I'm working on, these are case hardened. So when you put all that back together and everything's running really, really well, the motor, if you do everything right, 2 cranks and the whole machine should fire up and run. It's not going to play a machine, but it should fire up and run. So on a restoration, if you can see in here, this is how clean everything has to be. I tell on YouTube, I always say, cleanliness is next to godliness. So if everything's clean, everything's polished, right down to the back rod on an Edison like this. So the carriage is running like this. So the carriage is running. You want to polish this out the same way we did the pinions. And then you want to take the casting, the carriage casting holds the reproducer. And they have this thing called flex homes, and they come in different sizes. So even wear marks in the casting where it rides on the back rod, you flex hone them out with 320. These come in different sizes. And then that'll smooth them out. So that will make the carriage run smoother. And then the rail up in the front, you'll polish that out so it just runs really nice and easily. So now that you have the lead screw cleaned and running, this is oiled, and this is all running down, your machine should just run smooth as glass. And if you go to my YouTube channel and you type in Ambrola 5, which I'm working on now, I do a complete stream of videos on Ambrola and how to redo everything, even in the package springs. On springs, I don't use graphite and petroleum jelly because it hardens up like a rock. Because Edison didn't have penicillin, and I think we should move to the 21st century. And I use stuff in the States called green grease. And this is a synthetic polymer with rust inhibitors, which means it really slides well between the spring like this. And that'll really help make the spring work. You have to get the power out of the spring, so that'll really help it work. On the 5, I'm doing the spring barrel. When you take springs out, they'll be kind of cupped like this sometimes in manufacturing. And then you'll see right down the top of it where they were rubbing. So the spring's not totally flat, so it's sliding on this thing like this. So sometimes, like the 5, it had a lot of this scraping of the spring. I added just a pinch of STP to it after I packed it. And that'll help thin out the grease a little, but it'll also help it slide and move forward.
Brad, could I ask a question?
Oh yeah, I do better at questions.
Okay. I was wondering, you showed that box of parts that you have beside you there, and they look like they're brand new. Do you have any tricks for getting things?
Oh yeah, my trick. Let's take the gear.
Okay.
4/0 steel wool.
Number 4 still well, Mike?
Yeah, it's always number 4, is it, Brett?
40.
Pardon?
Number 4, steel
Four,
wool?
4 zeros.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's what I meant, really, yeah.
400.
Yeah.
40 melt the crappy grease in there.
Yeah.
So you just set it on the bench. I set it on this, or I set it on my vise. I just spray this 4/0 steel wool like this. I clean.
Give you shades.
Then at Harbor Freight or Bezos Amazon, they make these brass and steel toothbrushes. Harbor Freight, they're like 99 cents. So I come in after that, and then I come in with the steel, and I just get all the junk out and just keep cleaning and cleaning and cleaning and cleaning and cleaning till all that comes out. On brass parts, like this year, I'll do the same thing, but I'll use a brass brush, just like this. Edison's brass is very, very soft. And this is just a pinch harder than that. It won't hurt it. And you'll just clean this out like that and get everything clean. It's just the little things on motors that'll make them run. I have like a Vic 17 in the house. I rebuilt it 38 years ago. I oil it every once in a while. No problems, because I have the polymer synthetic grease in the springs. And that's how you get it all clean. Everything on the motor, everything. I polish all these out. I polish the running surfaces. Like this winding crank, this is where the crank comes in. This one has a tremendous amount of wear into the steel right here. And back here, if you can see the black lines. So when I assemble this, I'll use STP in here, because it'll stay longer. Because when you use sewing machine oil, and that works on parts of the machines, it'll leak out. So you put all this together so freely. It's like the governors like these. When you rebuild them, everybody will just put them together. So on governors, on the springs, you have a big hole and a little hole. So you have an oblong hole and a little hole. So you put all the oblong holes at one end and all the little holes at the other. Some only have the hole. But what happens is, after you put it together, people just screw this in place. You have to align it all. So I leave all the screws a little loose on a governor. After I even polish out the center shaft of the governor. Everything gets polished. All the bearings on a machine get polished. Everything. So then you take this, like the governor. So you've rebuilt it, you've cleaned it, you've polished out the slide. What you do is, before you assemble it, you take the flywheel part of the governor here, and you just stick it on the shaft, hold it, and give it a spin. If it doesn't spin freely, that means it's not going to push back and forth like this when the motor's running. So you go, okay, I have to clean the inside out, maybe flex on it, or maybe polish out the shaft a little more so it'll spin freely. Once you put it on and you give it a tweak and it doesn't run fast, you go, okay, a little more oomph. So when it comes back on, it's moving easily like that. So on assembly, you leave the screws loose, you get a block, something hard. The back end, you've tightened it down here with the screw. You've tightened that down real tight. You push down tight with your fingers on the flywheel part, and you come in and you tighten all the top screws, and then you tighten all the bottom screws. And what that does is, if the springs are kind of like this, kind of bowed, it'll bring them back in like this when I got the 5 apart like this, I had a couple of springs that were just a little bit up like this, but you want them flat like that. And what it also does, it aligns all the weights on it. And on Edison's, typically they're riveted together on the weights. So before pre-assembly, you just turn the weight upside down where they have the rivet, and you just give it a little tap there to make sure that that thing's seated, because sometimes you can get an Edison weight in the spring and the spring moves a little. So that means the rivets come loose. So you just tap it. And that's really what I do. Polish everything out, clean everything. And I use different oils on everything. I mean, the governor, I'll use STP. On the lead screw, I'll use sewing machine oil. Just very, very light on there. But when on restorations like this, you have to check the half nut because a lot of times they're worn out. And like on the 5, give me a second. Oh yeah, the BA you guys were talking about, I did a complete video on that. Series of video. On Amberola 5s like this piece fits in here like this. Well, the problem is this is pot metal. So now this is going to tighten up when it runs. It won't run freely. So what you have to do, if you can see it on camera, you can see where it's rubbing right here on the top end, right? On the sides. So what you do, what did I do with it? Ah, there it is. I take my Dremel tool like this, and I'll run the diamond cutter around the edge right here where it's rubbing. So then I'll clean this up like that till it gets in here to run smoothly. Now, what else people forget, this has to be oiled too, the pivot on it. And when you clean this up, you'll slowly just clean this up and then take down the pot metal a little and keep fitting it. Also, on pot metal reproducers like an Amberola 30 or something that gets stuck into your carriage, you do the same thing. You come in with, I use a diamond tool on this tool right here. This is like a Dremel drill. So on reproducers, you'll come in here and you'll grind this down the same way. So what you have to do is you have to be very careful, and you grind this down around 1 or 2 times, and then you'll test it into the carriage to see if it fits. I do a lot of Amberola 30s have a tendency, those reproducers have a tendency to really to swell up. But O's like this don't. And it's just little things you have to think about. I hope I don't bounce around a lot because I am dyslexic. My sweetness came up with the name.
May I ask you a question?
Sure.
I'm really enjoying your presentation. Thank you. Just eating it. But one thing that I've always wondered about, the Victor exhibition reproducers, and I understand the importance of having the stylus bar just making contact with the diaphragm, but the 2 adjustment springs that they have on either side of that fulcrum point are really heavy springs, and you can adjust that stylus bar so it just touches the diaphragm, but you can do that with different varying amounts of pressure on those springs, so long as they're sort of equal. What is your recommendation? Would you go as light as possible? Or in which case, why are the springs as heavy as they are?
I have no idea why the springs are that heavy, honestly. You know, I use Brian Parlier's, a phonograph shop springs, and the only problem with Victor's is the 2 buck teeth at the bottom where the needle bar fits on.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I do is I take an X-Acto knife or a file I have, because on the bottom of the needle bar, there's 2 little slits where they fit into the buck teeth. So if you look at them, you know, I do them a lot. If the buck teeth aren't pointed like that, I'll use a jeweler's file to file them down. You'll see them bent. And then on the bottom of the reproducer, where the slot is, I clean that out. I'll go in there with a screwdriver or something, and I'll just clean that edge out. So, because those two meet right here, and that's what makes it work. The springs are just like an adjustment to hold it exactly in place.
Mhm.
Is this working or?
Yeah, no, I understand. I've got some flat diamond dust impregnated flat files that I use for those.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I use them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing is, on Victor's, what I do is the little screw that goes in, right? They get crudded up and filled up with crud too. So what I do is I'll get the tip oiled, and then I'll run the nut all the way up and back, and then kind of wipe it off a little. You can have a minute drop in there. So on reassembly, it'll help it go in. And
Thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for all those videos. What a service you've done for the entire community that likes to dabble with the repair of these things. It's just marvelous. What a legacy you will leave to the hobby. Thank you so much.
I'm 70 and I didn't want to get paid by this stuff, you know. And if we do a concert like BB King, we did a week or so ago, you know, they're going to nail us on that. Plus, I have the best video photographer in the world.
And the most underpaid, I'm guessing, too.
Most unpaid. Any other questions?
So, Brett, do you do repairs just for yourself or for people in California or what?
Oh, no. I live in South Carolina, in Simpsonville, suburb of Greenville. And most of the machines you see I'm working on are customer machines. And the reason I do that, you know what? Every time I do it, I was told by Ron Deffels, if you're fixing them, your name's on it when it's going out the door. And I always remember that saying. So I've had 2 comebacks in 40 years. One was an Amarola 30, and the silk broke on the reproducer, and I fixed it for free, put a new one in. And the other one, I had but somebody didn't pay. But when they go out the door for me, they're done right, and I never get them back. And that's the way they should be done. I mean, if you have a family piece and you go, yeah, I want to play them, you know, because we don't have a TV set. I just sit here, my angel reads a book, and I just spend 78 for diamond discs. And I'm trying to teach the next generation. I have a few people from YouTube who call me up. I got a 12-year-old in Alabama, and a couple of other ones are young, 16, 17, and enjoying the videos and have started collecting phonographs. And the guy in Alabama, the kid, John, I sent him a care package. He really wanted Bear's oil sand. I had a spare copy, and I had a couple of spare phono books, and I sent it down to him. You know, there you go. I achieved the next generation. If you ever heard of Ray Phillips, he gave me the cylinder, the Ford Rambles Right one, and I thought that was very nice. I do that for other people too. Any other questions about restoration?
Yep. One here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Very well.
Good. Well, maybe I'll turn it down. Mine is about my nemesis, which is fiber gears. I have a Palliard. I don't know how to say it. I just read it anyway. Destroyed fiber gear. I've tried everything from finding ones. I even tried cutting my own. Anyway, it's not urgent because I actually abandoned it and went to a Thorns. But it's always bugged me. Do you have any hints or ways to deal with fiber gears, to either bring them back, make them, somebody who does make them, anything like that? Anything you want to say about fiber gears, which I hate with all my heart and soul, I'd appreciate.
Problem is they oiled them back in the day, and you can't oil those. So what you do is you make them. You know, I go out and I'll make them because I have complete machine shop over there. I'll show you one thing. I had an opera and the guy's gear died. So I made about 30 of them for operas. Then I'll make a run if I have a gear out like that. Like on Berliner's Brian, the phonographshop.com, he has reproduction fiber gears that are real good. But I'll make the off the wall stuff. I'll make parts that, you know, aren't available.
Are you making them out of brass or metal, or are you actually making them out of that weird material?
I'd probably do it in brass or Darien. Probably Darien if it's out of Berliner or something else. The problem arises now. You make one that's going to be a huge amount of money, or do you make a whole bunch of them, which is cheaper if I make a whole bunch of them. And it gets really complicated because you need the other gear that it meshes to when you do them.
Exactly. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And by the way, also big fan, first time caller. I have spent a lot of time watching your videos, and I appreciate them as well.
Yeah. You haven't been here when I flubbed them up, and my producer goes, "You did that wrong. We have to do it." We do more than one or two or three or four or five. I want to get it right. You know, sometimes I can nail it out of the box, but sometimes it's a little hard. On cabinet cleaning, we have video on cabinet cleaning. Okay. And a lot of people, what you use is, don't mind me moving around. On cabinet cleaning, we're back on the 4/0 steel wool. That's the only steel wool you're ever going to need, probably. So what you do is you take your cabinet and you go, it doesn't look right. So you take some goop, hand cleaner, and you rub it on with your fingers. And then the goop starts getting brown. Then you come in with a 4/0 steel wool, just a little bit. It's like washing your hands, right? And then you wipe that down, and then you take a ringed out washcloth, light one, and you just polish that all out. And then you come back with, have this in Canada, the Howard's Restorer finish of what wood you're using. So if you have a mahogany machine, you use a mahogany. And then you come back and you do all that, and then you put on Howard's feeding wax. Let me get a can. And if you have sun bleaching on your cabinet, you put Howard's feeding wax on it. So what I do is at night I go, man, it's 6 o'clock. I'm gonna go have a glass of wine. That'll be fun. So I'll coat the whole machine in Howard's feeding wax with 4/0 steel wool. That's what they tell you to do. And I'll leave it on there overnight. And then in the morning, I'll just buff it out. And then on the 5, this is how it came out right here. You can see my reflection in the hand right here. So now it looks great. I did the whole cabinet like that. And now you go to, that's how far you have to go if you want to restore your phonograph. You know, you have to clean everything, you have to do the cabinet, you have to make it look nice, and you want to play it. Any questions?
Brad,
I
how
have a
did
question. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Rexine. Do you have any tips for dealing with Rexine on portables?
What's Rexine?
Rexine, in modern terms, if we're talking guitar amplifiers or something, we call it Tolex. It's the fake leather that was used on portables, which is often very, very shabby when you get your portable.
Okay, it's the fake leather stuff on the portables?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it dries out?
Yeah, and it gets scuffed and the corners get battered and...
That stuff's kind of like a plastic, isn't it?
It's a fabric with some sort of coating on it. So I don't know what it exactly is, and it may not all be the same.
Might not be the same. What first thing I would try would be in the back or underneath where you can't see it. I would test it with a rag with a little soap and water. And then I would work up into chemicals. I did one and I cleaned it with tire cleaner. Seriously, I tried it and I go, okay, that works. Yeah, the trick to this whole thing is if you're going to clean something, you have to experiment with it. So if we're doing the portable, okay, I'll try that. That worked, but then it might start flaking. And then I had some Armor All, that was the tire cleaner. I go, I'll just put a little gap on my rag and underneath. I go, oh, that works really good. So I just did the whole thing like that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Brad, I've got a question. So you've shown us how you, say, for instance, you would refinish the cabinet there. How do you come up with these solutions? Like, it looks like it's various steps. Is it trial and error? Do you get tips from other collectors?
I just come up with this stuff. It's like, because I worked in this restoration shop going to college, and they did everything in there from porting cars to rebuild the Duesenbergs, and I learned a lot from those old guys. And I go, how do you do that? And they go, oh, you do it like that. You just play with it. And I just nothing's stuck in mud here in restorations. You go, I'm going to try different things. And I just said, well, what happened was I had a back rod on an Edison, and it was all corroded and messed up. And I go, well, I bet I could chuck that in the lathe and just polish that out. And I did. And I go, okay, that works. Sometimes I use a little WD-40 when I'm cleaning them. And I go, okay. And then I go, well, how do I get in that hole? And I go, I don't know how to get in the hole 40 years ago. So I went down to the mercantile in town and I go, hey, how do you got something that will clean out the inside of these holes? The guy goes, yeah, we got a Flexone. Well, I go, what's a Flexone? Oh, okay. So I bought one and tried it. And I says, oh, that worked real well. But it's mostly trial and error, but most of the time I just figure it out real quick in my head.
Great.
But I want
So your background was in auto restoration?
No, my background is I was an LA County probation officer.
Ah, okay.
And I worked in a place going to college.
That's great.
And I rebuilt my well, I bought a 750 and I learned to port and polish it. So I pulled the head off the 750 and made it run faster and played around. You know, my Angel and I used to go antiquing and we liked that. And we ran into a Victor 11 and the guy goes, "Oh yeah, it still has the same wire holding everything together." You know, typical antique dealer back then lying to you. And I got home with this Vic 11 for $300 or something. And it didn't run. And then I pulled it apart and messed around with it. Then I met Ray Phillips at the Pasadena swap meet. And I said, "Where do you get parts?" And he goes, "Oh, call this guy up, Dwayne, man, in Lakeport, gave me his number." And that was in the day with musical Americana. You know, I called Dwayne up and go, "Hey, I need this part," and he'd mail it to you with a bill. But before he passed away, he had my credit card on order right there for him. But I just come up with watching these guys do a Duesenberg engine, and it was like an operating room when they put it together. I mean, it was like, man. And the guy goes, "Yep, every time you rebuild, you got to have them totally clean." That just stuck in my head. And I said, phonographs the same way.
And what prompted you to start doing the YouTube videos? Is it just to share your knowledge?
Well, yeah, years ago, Ron Devilson told me, "You ought to do YouTube." And I'd go, "I'm too busy. I'm doing work for antique stores and stuff in the LA area." And I had like tons of machines. And then a friend of mine here in the South, he had he wanted an Army Navy. And I go, "Okay, those things are expensive, but I can find you one." You know, we found him an Army Navy. And he says, "Can you restore it?" And I go, "Yeah." And he says, "You need to do YouTube." And I go, "Okay, I'm not computer literate, but too smart." And I go, "How do we do YouTube?" So my Angel got on the Facebook page of the town we're in Simpsonville and says, "Does anybody know how to do YouTube?" And I met this nice lady at Starbucks and she goes, "Oh, you got to download the app." And that's how it started. So I did Henry's Army Navy, and then that's how it just started growing from there. So every time I do a machine, like I'm on the 5, I'll do the complete series of how to tear it apart, clean it, and put it back together in the play. And then it just blew up from there.
Wow. How many videos do you have altogether, roughly?
1770 so far. 1770.
Wow.
But everything's into YouTube. Like you have an Edison, you know, the little ring here that everybody has problems. It screws in the bottom of your reproducer to put this little ring in that has the 2 little slots. So what I did was I took some 50,000 steel, like sheet metal. I don't know what gauge this is. And I hacksawed it out. You can just hacksaw it out. And then on my belt sander, you know, I rounded it out. And then I took a file and I just filed down the edge right here. So it fits into those 2 slots and you tighten it down. So then after you put everything together and you tighten it down, and you just go down till it hits it, and you give it just a little turn. You know, you don't crank in on that thing. And then after you do that, you just do this. You get the end of your reproducer, all of them, and you go. And if you blow like that and you have air leak, you come back and you just, you know, say we're at noon, we'll just go to 1 o'clock and do another blow test. Oh, okay, now we'll go to 2 o'clock. Okay, it's ready to go. Because you want it to flex inside the gaskets also. And these are easy to make. I have a video on how to make these things.
Of course.
I started out with a horizontal file, you know, and I still use a hexagon file. But
Are you starting to find that you're like you've made so many videos of things that now it's slowing down a bit. You're running out of topics. You've done it before, or there's like
No,
it's possible.
I got 5 machines in here for customers I have to do before I go on vacation.
Videos.
There's always something new to show or something different to show, you know. Because what we've started now is, let's say the governors. I did videos on how to rebuild a governor, and I thought, okay, this is all you need to know is here's how you rebuild a governor. Let's move down the road. But then I thought, I started getting phone calls and emails. How do you rebuild the governor on a Victor 11? And I said, well, I have videos. So now I show you in the videos how to rebuild the governor for every machine I'm working on from now on. Because somebody's going to type into YouTube, how do I rebuild the governor on my Amber 05? Well, here it is.
Great.
Now I'm going to show you. I have to make some room for this. Just a minute.
Mike, if you can take any questions, go ahead and try.
Let's get down to the nitty gritty.
Does that look nice?
This is an A1 motor I did for a customer. And
Looks
this
brand new. It does.
Yeah, it does.
Thank you so much. No, he ordered the big enchilada on it, you know. I mean, repaint everything, but all the work like the cleaning, polishing, you know, the governor, everything. The only thing I did extra was paint it for him. I reblued all the screws. I have videos on how to reblue screws. You see the winding crank mechanism, all this, all clean, all polished out. And that's what they should look like when you're done.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And you always just leave a little bit, just a little bit of play in the government, you know, just a thousandth or so, just a little bit of play. But you know, just a minute. Back on the A1, I redid everything for him. It was a complete repaint, restripe, everything like that.
Nice.
Yeah. So on the governors, you see here the bottom of the flywheel, right here.
Yes.
This has to be polished out. So I checked this in the lathe and I polished that out all the way up to 1200. Because what happened, like on this fly, you see how if you look close, let me see. Can you see how the felts look now, like original?
Yes.
Okay. What they did was, and this is where the WD-40 comes in. You'll get the felt on your motor. And this will be all caked with that black ass grease I hate. So what I did was, I shot both of them with WD-40, and then I gently scraped off the top of the grease, and then dabbing it with a towel, and then I worked all the edges off too. So now I have really fresh felt still to work, and it's not dragging on the flywheel of the governor. And then if you go in and you give it a shot of oil, the oil just sucks right into the felts now. On Victor's with a leather, I'll take the speed control because they work the same, and then you'll scrape the outside with a one-sided razor blade. You just scrape that, and then you'll just come in and do the top a little. And if it's coated, give it a shot of WD-40. It won't hurt anything. And you just get all that crud out of there because it's the little details that'll make a motor run better. So now we have the back of the governor is shiny. This thing had wear marks from the oil. Because what happened was they oiled this stuff, and a lot of motors are like that. You have the flywheel running here, with the speed control here. The speed control's clogged with oil and grease and dirt. So it's just literally plowing through the back of the governor. So now the governor and the motor are having to work twice as hard to get through this. It's kind of like running your car engine with sand. So then you have this running free. So now when the motor's running, you're not getting, if the felts and everything are in tune and clean when they're running like this, now the motor's running. Now you're not running out of power playing the record on your phonograph. You're cranking it up. Man, it barely gets through one side. I think I cranked this thing up again. And it's just those little things that help make the motor run. On Victor's machines with spindle shafts, you look down, you look at it, you'll take everything apart and clean it like a Victor, and you'll look in there and you'll see these swirl marks from dull drills when they were drilling it because they didn't ream those out. So you just get the flex on and you figure out what size it is. And I tell everybody, best tool in the phonograph business, veneer caliber. You can get them at Harbor Freight cheap. You just come in here, you measure the spindle shaft, and you go, oh yeah, that's a 3/8, okay. I'm gonna buy a 3/8" Flexone, I'll Flexone that out. And then that's where it really wears out on Victor motors, is that you have the spindle shaft sticking up here. You put sewing machine here, oil your spindle shaft, and that oil just runs all the way down. So now it's running on metal to metal. And then you say, okay, I have to fix that. And I just come up with all these things. It's all in the videos. Any other questions?
Hold on. Any questions from anyone? No. Brad, I think you've covered most of it today for us.
I got one last thing, and then I'll be out of here. I started building model cars when I was a little kid. That's how I got started, detailing little model cars at 12.
Yeah.
You have a diamond disc and you have that stupid screw right here.
Yeah.
And you know how hard that is to get out? So what I did was I found a thin vice grips like this. Then, hand drills have, Phillips and straight slotted screw.
Yeah.
Driver. Well, I took one of those and I ground it down. So it was real short like this, but I have a slotted end here. And I ground it in. So now all you do, if you say this won't come apart, you just put this in the vise, just gently hold it, and then you just come in and hit the slotted screw and go click, and it undoes. I fought those for years until I figured out how to make the little tool. I'm glad you guys enjoyed my presentation. If you ever have any questions, you can contact me at dyslexicgeniushurt@gmail.com, and I'll answer your emails.
Excellent. Brad, thank you so much for taking the time out to show all you've done today. And I'm not sure if everybody in our group had seen your videos or were aware of them, but you've certainly helped to spread the word now and show your technical abilities are phenomenal.
Thank you so much.
Yep, it's been very good. Thank you.
It's been excellent. And I hope in future you can join us some more too on the Zoom meetings.
Okay. Anytime.
Always welcome.
I'll give you a tour of the collection next time.
Awesome. We'll be in touch then, and we'll
All right.
talk.
Thanks so much for that.
Okay.
Thank you. Well, certainly hope you enjoyed that. So we're going to take about a 15-minute break now, and then we'll
Right, and
begin with,
I will video. I'll
right?
do a video.
We're going to have the auction when we come back, and in the meantime, for the break, Mike will take a video going down the auction tables to show those on Zoom what we have here waiting for the gavel.
Yeah.
Thank you.